We are looking forward our way from Studio C in the 511 studios in the Brew District just south of downtown Columbus, Ohio. Hi, this is Brett, and our podcast guests always provide us with new information, whether it's for new to you, new to us. That's why we have them here, and they always help us learn something new and interesting. Today's guests are very special. This team not only teaches us something new, they help to make our tech and virtual worlds so much better. Let's welcome back our Nice Guy Technology team, Andy Landrum and Alex West. Thanks for joining us again.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Good.
Yeah, it's good to be here.
Gentlemen, it's always good to have you. And audience, I take advantage of these guys while they're here. I always have tech questions, so after we turn off the mics, I'm like, now, should I do this or should I do that? So thank you very much for continuing to show up, even though you know I'm going to put you on the spot. So, Brett, we always learn a lot from Nice Guy when they're here, but I also watch their videos. Mm-hmm. And so that's where I kind of get some ideas when I bring them back. Those tech videos provide lots of great information, quick, informative, right on target. And as I said, that's why I've got them here today. I viewed one of the videos and I knew we had to discuss the magic of rebooting. How many of you out there know every time you ask somebody for help, they say, did you reboot your computer? But also they've always got other good tech tips and tricks. So the team is going to help us solve all those little crazy tech problems that sneak up on us. But first, let's ask Andy and Alex to give us a little bit of an overview on their background, as well as Nice Guy Technology and how it got started.
So yeah, Nice Guy Technology started as basically a residential repair place for like your laptops and computers and stuff. And then we slowly started moving towards business to business, and now we're solely business to business, helping businesses all across Columbus with their technology needs and helping them with those technology problems so that they don't have to worry about them, so that they can focus more on running their business. We've had years and years of helping people with technology issues, and we always like to provide some helpful information to people who might be struggling a little bit.
Too, I think what I have seen happen in my different career places is that it's hard to find, number one, a technology group willing to talk to you that
Right.
you can understand, especially if you're a small organization. Oftentimes, these folks would rather deal with larger organizations or just one person. It's like you're hitting that middle niche group. And I think that's great for small businesses.
Yeah, we love to work with sort of that group of like 10 or more employees, we like to say is our sweet spot. We can go higher, but we like that sort of small knit group feeling of like working with like family-owned businesses or something like that.
Right.
We always love that kind of like businesses who are like smaller in size, just because we get to know everyone. We get to have a better relationship with everyone and get to know them on a personal level, which I like to do as well.
Good point. Yeah. So you guys, how long have you, the company's been around since 2011, is that right? Mm-hmm. How long have you both been working at Nice Guy?
For me in the fall, it'll be, I think, 6 years that I've been with them.
Okay.
I've been working with them off and on, I'd say in total about 5 years now.
Okay. Where were you working before that?
I was working at a restaurant. I knew Andy in high school, and then I was looking for another job, and my aunt was like, oh, the Landrums are hiring. So I was like,
there you go.
I'll go see what this is about. And then I didn't think much of it other than if I could get out of the service industry, but I've been there ever since.
Wonderful. So, Andy, you got to give a shout out to your parents.
My parents, Mason and Mary, they've owned the company since 2011, and they're doing a great job. It's a fantastic company. It's great to work there.
Yeah, it really is. So we need to shout out to them and thank them for having you come and join us today.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, and I think it's also important to note, and this is more in the pivot of business sort of thing, that they recognized that they, whether it was a natural evolution or not, that went from the personal to business,
yes.
straight out. And they weren't afraid. to do it. I mean, of course, they would hold their breath and see if it's going to work, but they did, and it's working for them, which I think is great. So, we've all been through this situation. First, your computer acts strange, then it freezes, then we freeze, not sure what to do next. Calling a computer guru usually begins with the question, hey, did you reboot it? Turns out there is much more to that small step than we realize. And before we get to the fixes, though, don't we need to identify the problems we're experiencing? It may be frozen, but possibly just slowing down, or programs are not opening correctly, or we can't get an internet connection. Just what should we do initially to diagnose the situation, even though we're in that panic mode and may not remember steps, but maybe, as we take that breath and go, okay, how do we help you?
Yeah, I think the most important part is that breath. It's hard to get caught in that situation of, oh, everything's going to be awful. I'm going to lose all of my data. Am I going to get my computer back? But it's just kind of breathing, taking a step back, and then realizing, okay, let's see what's actually going on. If it's an internet connection, the easiest thing to do is see, is it only this computer, or is everything else down as well? Because if everything else is down, it's probably an internet outage or something like that. If it's only the computer, then that's kind of an easy thing of like, okay, let's just do a reboot, see if that does anything. If not, you can always see if your drivers are out of date. If you're on Windows, you can do what's called a network reset, which just completely flushes the network settings that it has, and it'll put them to what it was initially. And then you'll put in your Wi-Fi password, or plug back in your Ethernet cable, and you should be good to go. But anything else, I mean, it could be a myriad of things with it being a computer, but just kind of trying to figure out what's the cause. Is it getting onto the internet? Is it a certain website? Or just kind of putting on your detective hat to try and figuring out what the issue is.
Mm-hmm. My wife just recently went to a new iPhone, the 15, and of course she had to take from, I don't even know what level phone she had, a 13 or something like that, all the stuff that had to go on there. So she was having some problems with, and speaking of rebooting, some of the apps weren't working right. And I had heard, it's like, delete the app, bring it back up, bring it back on your phone. Ta-da, it works. Which is, you would not think it's simple as that. It's like, why am I, you're thinking I got to bring the phone back. And I know we're kind of on a computer kick, but it's just kind of similar. Yeah. But it's that sometimes it's just rebooting the app, taking it off your phone, simple things like that to get, and I think a lot of people don't realize though too, if I remove the app, don't I lose everything? It's like, no, it remembers you have it, and it's that learning curve. Yeah. It's like, no, you're fine. Because she asked me, it's like, am I going to lose a Libby app? And she said, am I going to lose all the books? Like, shouldn't, because it's not stored on your phone. I bet it's the app. And she tries like, okay, it's working now, or some changes happen because it's now upgraded to another phone. I think she was trying to, and again, this is in the weeds, but we were in the car trying to connect it up, and she was asking Siri to start the app. And Siri says, no, I can't do that because you're in the car. And she put it together. It's like, oh, wait a minute. You can also read books on Libby. It's not just audiobooks. And it must be trained to going, no, I can't do that for you. You're going to manually do it because you can actually read while you're driving, and I'm not going to do that. There's some stoppage there. And she figured that out. It's like, because she's used to the app. But anyway, like I said, it's going in the weeds here a little bit, but it's those going the path of trying to figure things out. And maybe we're more smart about it than we realize.
Our computers are hundreds of pieces, and they can all be problematic at some point. Is the bigger problem software or hardware? And is it always obvious, or are there pieces that are so integrated that we'll never be able to distinguish what's going on?
Like the hardware stuff. Usually that is much more obvious and easier to tell what is going on. Like we can run certain diagnostics that, like, say whether the RAM is having trouble or whether the CPU is having trouble. Usually that is much more obvious than issues that pop up because of software, but the software issues are much more prevalent and usually take most of the time of what we do as a company, and is usually where our efforts are pointed to most.
Every time I get another level on the package of Word and Excel, and it never fails that it's Outlook. Oh my gosh, it's just a problem.
That's probably one of the biggest things that we have issues with is just issues with Outlook. Is people will call and say, "Oh, my email isn't working again," or "I'm having this weird issue," And for a lot of features, there's one issue of where if you're trying to schedule out something, it'll tell you, you have X amount of conflicts. If you're going 6 months out, it's not telling you where all of those conflicts are. So it'll make you go through and be like, oh, okay, I need to resolve this conflict, this conflict, this conflict, so I can schedule this 6 months out. Like if it's a recurring thing for 6 months.
Right.
But it's not something that Outlook can do, is show you which conflict it is. You would have to manually go through and view all of the conflicts.
I know. Outlook is such a problem, but I still love the filing system of being able to hold on to emails.
Yeah. Well, and even though it runs into all those issues, it's unfortunately still probably one of the most reliable email clients to use. I mean, most of the times when our client is on a third-party system where it's not being ran through Microsoft servers, they're running into more issues that are bigger deals. It'll, not let them actually send or receive emails, versus Microsoft using Outlook. It's always just weird kind of issues with viewing or just kind of how you want it to be better, but it is what it is.
I use Gmail and dump it into Outlook, and boy, do you have to be careful.
Oh, yeah.
I can't tell you how many times I've gone back into Gmail thinking I'm cleaning stuff up, and then I go into Outlook and I go, whoops, it's gone. It's gone, So yeah, you really do have to be careful with that.
Yeah. Are you seeing as well that when an app, let's just say it's Zoom, for sake of an app to talk about, that you kind of ignore the update? It's telling you should, but you just keep ignoring it. Is there a point where an app is just going to say, you're done. We're not going to work for you anymore until you update? Well,
yeah, there are times where that does happen. Sometimes Windows does that, actually.
Oh, really? Okay.
Where
I'm noticing Apple iOS will as well too sometimes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
Windows is more prevalent with that because sometimes you can have it ignore updates for like 10 days or something like that. Okay. You can just turn off those reminders. Eventually, sometimes Windows forces those updates on you and forces it to restart and update. And usually that's where problems come around. And sometimes we'll have to roll back those updates. But Mac is a little bit more forgiving in that sense. And actually, the differences between Windows and Mac, sort of going back to the hardware problems that sometimes might crop up, that's a little bit more problematic on the Mac side, because with Mac, everything is so integrated that usually you'll have to replace or take it to an actual store and have them like replace big components of the machine, like the entire keyboard, or like may even just need to get a new machine entirely. Most of the time with Windows machines, you can more easily identify those issues, whether those problem components like the RAM or the CPU or the GPU, and it's much easier to like buy it yourself and replace it yourself than a Mac is usually, because they like to keep everything very integrated, and it works well when it works well. When it doesn't, pretty much everything is
right. Yeah, well, that makes sense.
But boy, those Mac lovers, they always say that they do much better.
I'm in both fields on that. I understand the benefits of both. I get it, and I've never been
both.
Yeah, I'm comfortable with both. It's just remembering how things react on the screen, and that sort of thing. But I get it. I've never been Team Apple or Team PC necessarily. Whatever's in front of me, if it works and makes my life easier, let's go for it. And honestly, and I get why people go crazy because of those problems. Mm-hmm. A lot of it's based on that they've had an Apple and have never had an issue with it in their life, but they hear horror stories about PCs. Mm-hmm. So they realize they think that if I ever have a PC, I'm going to walk into that world.
And then I hear people who have had horror stories with Apple, and they just absolutely will not buy an Apple because the Windows is just more customizable in that sense.
Exactly.
That was my experience with the first iPhone. I had more trouble with that iPhone, and I switched to Android, and I never went back.
Yeah, wow. Yeah. Interesting.
Going back, I want to do another step back here on equipment. I was having trouble with a monitor and it was creating issues. Got a new monitor, which was wonderful, but it does little weird things. And I've noticed, like right now, I don't get all the pretty pictures. I just get a blue screen when I turn the computer on. So this morning, when I finished my email, I'm going to do a reboot, not a restart, but a reboot, and see if I could get those pretty pictures back up on my screen. So.
Yeah, that's actually an important point. Going back to how to identify those issues. Sometimes it could be those external components like the mouse or the keyboard or a monitor that could be giving you issues. And usually it could be like a loose cable or something like that. It could be components of the monitor. So like just taking those steps to identify or going sort of down the chain of like what could go wrong. And testing those just to see, like, okay, so where is it failing? Is it the actual monitor or is it the cable?
We've had a lot of cases where we've gone on site somewhere to fix a computer, and the issue was the monitor was unplugged from power.
Oh, right.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. Well, my old monitor, I basically unplug. It was like a rebooting of the monitor. Unplug it, plug it back on, and then it would work. And I got tired of doing that.
Yeah. Well, let's stay on that equipment kick here. I've heard that we should likely utilize a booster with our internet modems. Is that something we should look at? I mean, or is there some other way that we can maximize internet speed or maybe even coverage in the home, possibly? I know the two are different, but at the same time, people are using Wi-Fi at home and they want that Wi-Fi as much as they can around the house to be as strong as possible. And speed is always an issue too.
Yeah. So with the boosters, the only thing to be wary of is it's not going to give you any more speed. It's just going to give you more signal around wherever you are, if it's in your house or it's in your office. I use what we use at work, which is Unify or Ubiquity products. Those are great if you can just, you have your main router and then you can attach whatever. There's network switches where you can see what's plugged into it. You can get access points, which is what puts the signal around the house. And then you can, if you like to get into it, it gets you a lot of things. If you can see what devices are on your network, all the traffic that's going through it. And it's much more secure than just a basic router would be from Spectrum or Breezeline or whoever your internet service provider is.
And what's it called?
Unify, UNIFI.
And is that the name of the company?
Yes, the company.
Okay.
And of course, it has to be an I on the end.
It does, yeah.
Of course.
It's actually, the people that started it, I think, were ex-Apple employees.
Oh, well, there you go.
Oh, wow. There you go.
There
Exactly.
You go. So are there lots of different pieces of this to choose from, or?
You can really get into the weeds of it. There's the most basic device that I think would be helpful for people is called the Dream Machine. It's kind of a little cylinder that just looks like a little R2D2 that has a little blue light at the top, which would just be a nice home router to do. I think it's about $200 that you could get at Micro Center, online, wherever. And it has Wi-Fi within that device, and then you can get other components to either strengthen or whatever you want to do with it. And then they have security cameras, they have door access, they have a whole lot of other devices.
The whole family of those devices is very customizable to whatever you might need. And they actually have a couple of apps you can download. That's where you can actually see that kind of information of what actually is using those access points and what devices are actually connected to your network. That's where you can see all that information.
And it makes your devices at home more secure then?
Yes. Yeah. It has like a better firewall built into it, and it has just other pieces of software and hardware components that just stop people trying to penetrate your network.
I mean, I live in a condominium complex, so if I pull up what Wi-Fi is in my house, I'm pulling up everybody's in the neighborhood too. Not that I can get into it, but you see it, and especially if they, they use their name, so Sam's Wi-Fi. Well, there you go. There's Sam. So
yeah, you kind of have to watch what you name your router too. I've seen some goofy It's like,
It's true.
you do realize other people could see the name of your, of that. It's
Yeah.
like,
I will say,
like sexy kitten or something. It's like, no. I don't want that on my, as an option,
I will say some of those names give me life. Like one of my favorites, I think, where we live, someone has a Wi-Fi called "It Burns When I Pee."
No way! Oh my gosh!
Some of those names are wild. But I love
There
them.
you go. What did we say at the beginning of this? You guys would definitely give us a lot of tips. So, okay. All right. Okay, now we started this out talking about rebooting. We're going back. We're ready for that all-important reboot. I'm usually fearful to reboot when a problem is occurring, because if I have to turn it off manually, if you can't do like a Control-Alt-Delete, go into the task manager and all of that, tell us what's really going on when we reboot. What does it do to the computer, and what is it really fixing?
Yeah, so a reboot, honestly, I should preface, there are a few different things that people call it as rebooting, restarting, shutting it down, and then restarting it back up. Usually what we like to say to people, if you can do a restart, do that, because a general reboot and just shutting it down and then restarting it back up, those do a little bit different things than a restart. A restart is basically telling the computer, hey, let's shut everything down. Let's restart all of these different processes, make everything run fresh.
Right. It's kind of like flipping a switch when you're walking in and out of your bedroom to put the lights on, as opposed to flipping the switch with all of the electricity in your house.
Right. Kind of like a breaker would be a good example. But yeah, so shutting it down actually doesn't necessarily restart all the different processes running in the background. It basically just says, hey, let's go to sleep for a little bit and then turn back on. A restart really gets into the weeds and restarts all of those processes that might be messing with you a little bit. And in terms of having to physically shut it down with like the button on the computer, that usually doesn't mess with the computer too much. We always, of course, tell people restart it on the computer itself, not with like the physical button, as much as you can. But if something is really like stopping you from actually interacting with the computer, shutting it down manually, not really an issue. But overall, restarting solves a lot of issues that we have that come up in at least our day-to-day with helping people with their technology issues. But it really is like sort of a catch-all for if something feels off, if something is going wrong, try a restart, see if that fixes it. If not, then always feel free to like dig a little deeper, see what could be going on.
Okay.
Well, speaking of the digging deeper, so are there other tips or tricks like the rebooting that can be done easily that can help the computer run more smoothly then?
We typically use a piece of software called Driver Booster. It's nice that it'll look at all of the, and this is specifically for Windows, it'll look at all of the drivers that are on your computer. It'll see what's outdated and what isn't. The only thing to watch out for, though, which is a little annoying, when you are downloading it for the first time, it will spam you with a lot of, would you like this free piece of software? Would you like this other free piece of software? So you just want to make sure you're not downloading all of these miscellaneous pieces of software that you don't need. But that's a good place to start, especially like you'll see, oh, this sound driver is from 2014 or, something like that. And then still for Windows, depending on what computer you're using, most major companies have their own driver software. So if you have Lenovo, it's something called Lenovo Vantage. Dell has something called Dell Command. HP has HP Support Assistant, and that'll check for the HP specific or the company specific drivers that you want to update.
So when you really are like literally shutting it down, I mean, completely turning it off, what has happened? You're looking at a computer that is freshly bringing everything back up. Am I on the right track there?
Yeah, well, shutting it down basically is saying, okay, we're going to put everything on pause. Power is no longer moving through the machine, and all the components are off. When we then turn it back on from a shutdown, it's basically saying, okay, let's resume everything back up. Whatever processes it can keep how they were, it will. And basically just saying, okay, running again. With a restart, everything that was happening on the computer basically gets reset. So if there were any problem programs giving you trouble when the computer was running, basically all of those processes are now completely stopped and then restarted again.
Okay.
But yeah, with a shutdown, that's basically just putting everything on pause.
Okay.
And whatever was running that it can resume, it will. Whatever needs to be restarted, it'll restart that. But we always like to tell people restart if you can, because that really helps everything.
And if somebody is trying to hack your computer, a restart or a reboot isn't necessarily going to stop that. Is that right? And if so, what should we do if we think somebody is trying to hack in?
Big thing is still just take that step back, because a lot of times, as much as it may seem like someone's hacking your computer, it's not. Recently, one thing we've noticed was when people were trying to go to Amazon's website, if you're on Google, you can have sponsored ads, and someone was taking out sponsored ads where it looked like you were going to, www.amazon.com, and it would take you to this website where there's a bunch of flashing images. It's saying something along the lines of like, there's something wrong with your Microsoft account. Please call this number to fix the issue. But, with that, nothing's happened. You've gone to a web page and it's trying to phish you to get you to call someone or put in some sort of information that could then compromise you. With a hack, turning your computer off will disconnect them from the computer, but depending on how they got into the computer, like if they already have their software on the computer, once you turn it back on, they can still get into it. If you think someone has hacked your computer, the best thing would be to typically take it to, here I would say Micro Center, or try and find someone locally that knows something about computers that could help you out. Because that is always the hard part of, if you're just someone, that's not necessarily affiliated with a company and has an IT person to work with, it's hard to find that support. So,
Right.
Taking it to Micro Center and all of those stores that could help you restore it to a previous point is very beneficial. One thing you can also do to help out with that process is making sure you have a backup in place, making sure you have some place or some way that you are backing up that data and backing it up regularly. We really love to push that, because that really helps when anything could go wrong with like the hardware, or if someone hacks into it and messes and encrypts everything. That backup really saves a lot of time, a lot of headache. Yeah, that is something I really like to recommend to anyone who can.
I think that's the top tip that you all have given us in every program, is that if we don't have backups going, there's the issues and problems are much greater than just needing to reboot. That's
exactly.
for sure.
Yeah. So. Well, staying on that hacker theme, you recently released information on what you should do if you happen upon a strange USB drive, which is amazing we even have to ask this, but many would just plug it into their computer to see what it is. I probably already answered the question once I laughed. What are your suggestions?
Please don't.
Yes.
It almost likens to some of the BBB scams that you hear about, or the scams reported by BBB, and you kind of go, somebody fell for that. Somebody fell for that. But it's like you pick up a USB drive and you put it in your computer.
I know. Yeah. Well,
but people, amazingly, people do that. I'm surprised why.
Well, it used to be that USB drives weren't so common, and were more expensive. Today they're
a dime a dozen, basically.
Literally, people give them away free. So
I know, and I shouldn't laugh. I know I shouldn't, but it just seems so obvious. Some things do, and some things don't, I guess. But
so if we see one in the parking lot of a grocery store, your suggestion is to
leave it alone.
Please don't use it.
Throw it away.
Stomp on it and break it so no one else does.
Throw it away.
Throw it away. Yeah.
If you haven't seen the video already, please go watch it. It has some really good information. But yeah, don't even think about using a USB drive that you do not know what is on it.
It's like finding a mouse in the parking lot. Hey, you want to come on in the house, little mouse? Come on in.
And we're sort of laughing because, if you see something in the parking lot, you don't want to pick it up anyway, regardless of what it is. But it could really be where somebody would you look at this for me kind of thing. You don't know where that has been.
True.
I mean, it could really be in all innocence that you're putting somebody else's USB into your computer.
Yeah, versus finding but somebody offering it up and they put the stuff in it. That's a good true point.
You want to believe that it's okay, but yeah. This is maybe too simplistic to ask, but I will. You put an unknown USB into your computer. Unless your computer's connected to the internet, it could ruin your computer, but nobody can get to you because you're not on the internet.
Correct. Yeah. Correct. If you're offline, there's nothing really the software could do other than stay on your computer. Versus if it's online, if you have a network that's not secure, it could spread to the devices on the network and go from there.
Okay. So let's carry this theme of hacking a little farther. We've talked about this before. The worst thing that's going to happen, our laptops and our tablets are in our hands and going with us wherever we're going. We need to have internet access constantly for those, but then you're going into public Wi-Fi systems. How can we safely connect into a public Wi-Fi system? And are there situations which we should never go public, even if we think we're safe?
Yeah. So in general, we like to tell people just because people like to make these Wi-Fi networks that look legitimate and look like they're made by the company or the coffee shop that you might be at. Try to use your own personal hotspot if you can. If you absolutely know that this network is safe, I know this for a fact. I've talked to the owner and stuff like that. Then feel free to use it. One thing I will say to never do on public Wi-Fi is look at things that would have your personally identifying information or like your bank account. Don't be checking that on public Wi-Fi.
So don't balance your checking account at a Panera or something.
Yeah, correct.
You gotcha. Okay. Nothing against Panera, but as an example.
Well, right. Yeah, of course. Exactly. But yeah, in general, when you're out at a public place, be just a little bit more wary of which networks you connect to, because a lot of people like to make those fake networks that look legitimate and then can spread a virus or something that way, or find some personally identifying information if you are checking those bank accounts and stuff. So yeah, just be cautious.
I think one other time when we talked about using our personal hotspots, you had suggestions for which hotspot app to use. Am I right?
So typically with hotspots, it's built right into the phone.
Okay.
I'm not aware of any other apps you can use for a hotspot. You can purchase other devices from AT&T or Verizon that put off a hotspot network that you could connect to. But no, typically with a phone, you just have the one that's built into it.
You may have touched upon VPNs.
Mm-hmm.
Can you kind of talk a little, because that kind of goes with this a little bit.
Sure.
What a VPN is and why it's something to consider.
Yeah. So a VPN stands for a virtual private network, and there's two use cases for it. The main one is if you're working somewhere, in a business, you use a VPN to connect to the office, to, connect to the server, work on whatever documents are stored there, or just if there's some reason that you need to be connecting to that server or connecting to that network to use something on the network. The other reason to use a VPN is just when you're wanting to kind of shield yourself from those bad networks. It encrypts your internet traffic that you're using. It's much harder to see what you're doing on that network, and it just makes you safer in general.
So that could be an alternative if you're at a coffee shop to go on a VPN. Still don't do the private stuff, but at least you're a bit more secure.
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. At least be a little bit smarter about it.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah. Mm-hmm. Okay. Cloud services. We could do a whole podcast on that, but let's touch on it though. First of all, let's can you give an example of a definition of cloud services, but and also a few tips and tricks to meet our need to move to cloud services and backup systems.
Yeah.
And how they work, and really kind of what is the cloud? It's such a misnomer, quite frankly, but but we live with the word.
Mm-hmm. So typically, what a cloud service is, it would be something similar to OneDrive, Dropbox, Box, something that is storing some sort of information on the network that you can access from anywhere. You don't need to be in a specific location to access that data, and you'll have a login associated with that account. You can typically do it from multiple devices, and you can just see what kind of files or anything that's stored in the cloud. And why it's helpful is because we're moving away from needing companies to purchase, $5,000 to $10,000 server equipment, or, if you're in the enterprise industry, it's even more than that. It's astronomical how much people used to and still spend on servers versus putting that information in the cloud where it's much easier to access, but you still have the issues of, someone could gain access to the account, but you would still have that with the server anyway.
Mm-hmm. Okay, that sounds good. Yeah, so you're not walking away from cloud services. It's going to be there, and trust it.
Mm-hmm.
You're getting away from hardware as a backup, but trust that it works, that it does. And I know it's gotten better over time.
Well, and it's easier too versus having a USB or a physical external drive that you're plugging into your computer. Either you use a piece of software or you manually move whatever documents over to save it onto there, so that in the case that your computer breaks or there's a fire or something like that, then you have those files. But if you're a home user and you just have that next to your computer, then you're going to lose the files anyway. So if you have it stored in the cloud, most of the time there would have to be a huge issue at the server farm, or something major with the company that you're doing it through. You typically aren't going to lose your documents.
And doesn't that go back to our whole notion of be prepared, have everything backed up?
Exactly.
It's a lot easier to do if you're using a cloud service.
It's 100% easier.
Yeah. Because my understanding is, the cloud services, it's basically duplicated. It's not just like in one location. There's backups in many locations around the country.
Exactly. Yeah. A lot of companies will utilize different server farms that are in different states. Yeah. Typically, you're not going to use it in different countries, but you can do that as well. Mm-hmm. And then the only thing to think about too is the services that I mentioned earlier, OneDrive and Dropbox and Box. Those are typically synchronization tools, less than backup tools. For backup tools, you'd want to use something like Backblaze or Carbonite that's actually making a backup of your data, whereas OneDrive is more of just, I've got a laptop and I've got a computer at home. Let me use these files in both places.
Well, and to me, OneDrive, which is Microsoft, correct?
Correct.
It seems like they make it harder for you instead of easier. And so maybe I'm approaching it incorrectly, and that's why it seems to be hard to use.
Yeah, sometimes it can be confusing on how to set it up or what the purpose is. It's really if you just have multiple computers or multiple devices where you're trying to view something on, that's where the best use case is.
I'm also going through where I have an external backup drive that unfortunately is already full. So I'm like, no matter how much I try to get rid of stuff, it's like it's always full. Mm-hmm. And with cloud computing, It could be a paid service, but it's easier to add space.
Exactly. Yeah.
So
one thing I will add on, if I may, with those things like OneDrive and Dropbox, they sync the files between the computers, and that is almost another reason why to have another physical backup is it makes it almost more important, because if you do get hacked, sometimes that can sync over to those OneDrive and cloud services, where it could end up encrypting the files that are on that cloud service.
Really?
So that is another reason why, again, having a physical backup is so important. Sorry, go on.
So if I understand you correctly, then your OneDrive, that Microsoft all-seen drive that's out there, can be hacked, even though you think that everything is locked down. If you're not locked down, it's not locked down.
Yeah. And then that's why because like, let's say you have that happen to you if you're using a backup service where it's like, let's restore data from 2 days ago before this happened, then all of the files will be fine. You might lose some, but if you're losing 10% versus 100%, that's much better.
Could that happen if you were using Backblaze or Carbonite?
That could happen, but whereas there are different instances that you can back up from, you can just choose an older version.
Okay.
Whereas OneDrive, like let's say I have a file on my desktop that gets compromised and then OneDrive syncs it, then it's going to be in the cloud. It could spread to other computers and then you'd have a larger problem. Versus having that backup, maybe that one backup is bad, but then you just restore from a different one.
Okay.
No, not saying that like those cloud services are bad for your security or anything. In fact, they actually are just very convenient, help a lot with, like, if you do have multiple computers, being able to find those files and not have to deal with the hassle of moving them over multiple times. But just another thing to be wary of, why having a physical backup is so important, and using those services like Backblaze, or just to be able to have that option of rolling back to a previous version of all of your files if need be.
Is in looking at OneDrive versus something like Carbonite, do those back up software or only data?
Typically, it's data. You'd have to look at what plan Carbonite or whatever backup service is selling.
Okay.
Typically, they'll call it like a data plan, and then there's a full image backup or a full disk backup, which would be, all of your applications, all of your hidden folders, app data, and everything like that. But most of the time, reinstalling the applications is much easier than losing all of those files, which is why it's typically files and photos and things like that that are backed up, and not the software that can just be re-downloaded.
Okay.
Yeah, and in that sense, it seems a little bit redundant to back up software that you can just, if you need to, download it again somewhere else.
Okay. Our conversations always go so quickly with you guys. I say that for all of our guests, but really for you. We've had some fun talking about rebooting, and it seems so simple, but it's really not. And it's not. The computer folks don't tell us to reboot just to aggravate us. There's really a reason to do it. In all of our conversation today, are there things that you really want to make sure our listeners have heard? Any last words of wisdom?
I mean, I would say the two big things that I really want people to walk away with is if there is a problem that is happening with your computer, first try restarting. And specifically restarting if you can, since shutting down and restarting do a little bit different things. Restarting is more all-encompassing in possibly fixing some of the background services. And at least for me, one of the other things is back up your stuff. If you're walking away with even one thing from this, back up your data, because that can fix so many issues that you might have down the road.
Great.
I would agree with Andy. Those are the two main things, other than please don't use random USBs.
Got it. There you go.
Yes.
Well, many thanks to our Nice Guy technology experts, Andy Linderum and Alex West, for joining us again today. I think we had the green jackets for them this time.
Maybe.
I'm not sure.
There you go.
Multiple guest shots. Maybe, I'm not sure. The golden mic, I think, is at 10 times, something like that.
Okay.
Listeners, thank you for joining us. Don't forget to check out our show notes on the website for contact information and the resources we've discussed today. You can find all that information at lookingforwardourway.com. And we're looking forward to hearing your feedback on this or any of our other podcast episodes.